Ah, dang it. Pulled it free. There we go. Whee! Yeah, well, giving an account for himself anyway. Yeah, we've got him doing alright if he's pulling the boat around a bit.
Yeah.
There we go. See a bit of colour there. I'll bring him up to the surface on this side, he says, of the rope, hopefully. Good sized fish, eh?
On the other side.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Nice work, mate. Awesome. Correct. Must be about fish number 15 on this. Well, it was a really successful day's fishing, and back in now, so I just thought I'd take a few moments to show you the lures that I caught all those fish on, and that was the new Glowbite Mighty Micros. They actually come in two different styles. So today I was fishing with the jerk shads. You can see that there's 3 different colours of lure there, and 3 different weights of jig head as well. And then you've also got the micro squid lures. So they're again Glowbite Mighty Micros, but these are a squid imitation. You can see 3 different colours there, orange, pink, and the ghosty white colour, and 3 different jig heads again. So the thing that started me on this whole micro bait pursuit, I suppose, was looking at the success that other people were having, but also looking pretty carefully at the gear that was available in the New Zealand market. And what I found was that a lot of your lures that have been called micro baits actually weren't that small. They were still sort of between 2.5 and 3 inches long, and yet I could see the potential to make a much smaller lure that was actually closer to an anchovy imitation. So that was one of the first things, the first criteria. We wanted something that was even smaller. But the second criteria, and perhaps the key thing, was we wanted a hook that was actually going to stand up to those jaws on a snapper or the weight of a decent kingfish. Because what I found was a lot of the product that I was finding in the market was actually designed for trout fishing. It was a freshwater jig head. Somebody had said, hey, let's fish a really small lure out here in the ocean, and so they'd just go and borrowed some trout fishing gear. Certainly catching fish are right on it, but the question is, do you land them? Do those fish crush the hook? Do they straighten out the hook? Does the hook survive a few sessions in salt water? And that's why we've gone for, I'll show you the jig heads. This one's been a bit worked over. He's been chewed on by about 15 fish today. But there's your jig head. There's your jig head there. So you can see in the side profile, you've got the same hook that we use on our grumpy fish lures. Except that I got them to bend up the end and make it suitable for a jig head. So the same hook as we use on the grumpy fish, super sharp little hook, but a decent amount of gape. And what I found today was that was working really well. It was actually getting in behind the jaw of like 50 centimetre snapper, no problem at all. And that's what we were looking for. You want to be able to have a hook that grabs a decent amount of flesh, or better still, gets behind a bone, and so it can't be shaken loose easily by a fish. You'll also notice with these jig heads that we've just designed that they're pretty slim in the horizontal profile, but then when you look at them end on, they're more of a barrel shape. So you can see the shape of the head there. That means we can put a lot more weight into that head and still have a slim profile. That's what we were looking for there. So I was fishing that jig head there, it's 12 grams. I was fishing it in up to 55 metres of water today, very successfully. Okay, so because we're fishing in close to 50 metres of water, and we're only using 12 grams, which is less than half an ounce. I'm going to cast well ahead of my drift, and then you'll be able to see me lifting the rod with the bail open multiple times to just let more line out. So each time if I do a full arc of the rod with the bail open, I'm getting another 3 or 4 meters of line, because I'm casting at about maybe 20 meters if I'm lucky ahead of our drift, but I want to get to 50 meters, so I've got to do that 3 or 4 meters of line 10 times, really get to the bottom. Every now and then as I'm letting that lure drop, I'll just stop it, even just with my finger, with my hand close to the bail arm, just in case there is a touch or something's following it down, then I can whip that bail arm over quickly and nab that fish. And that's how we've got quite a few fish on this little anchovy impersonation. So I'm going to flick the line, the lure really high in the air, because I want the wind to catch it and take it as far as possible. But not only take the lure as far as possible, I actually want it to take as much line as possible as well. And then there's those whips of the rod tip. You can get a couple, 2 or 3 in soon after you've cast, because there's a big belly of line sitting on the surface of the water. So I want to try and extend the amount of line as much as I can. Because the beauty of this little lure is obviously it's really light. When a fish picks it up, it's not feeling the weight. It's tending to hold it for quite a nice length of time, even if I'm slow striking. But I still need to get as much line in the water as possible. There we go, just watching all those little loops and seeing if they straighten out. If they straighten out slowly, that's fine. It just says that the lure's sinking. But if they straighten out quickly, then that means that I've got a strike or a fish playing with the lure, and it's time to strike. Now that the line's almost straight under the boat, I'm just testing to see if that fish is around. If I don't get any touches, then I'm going to open the bail arm again and lift the rod high to get even more line in the water. But I'm doing that pretty carefully because it's about now that I tend to get hit. Just as the line goes under the boat, it starts coming out the other side. I'm just giving it little tiny twitches. It's only a small bait, so wouldn't be natural for it to do really big movements. So I'm just giving it little twitches and saying I'm dying or whatever, pretending that it's a bait fish in trouble. Still letting a bit more line out, because once a fish starts to inquire, he often keeps going. So you can afford to have a little bit of slack line for a few seconds. Good. That's the heaviest of the jig heads in the packs. You've also got a 8 gram and a 6 gram. And you'll notice that the hooks are the same size on all of them, because that's the hook size that works on that little lure. So often what I was finding was when the weight got smaller, the hook got smaller. Well, I don't want a smaller hook. I want a hook that's going to land me a kingfish, and it's going to work across a variety of weights. So that's what we've done. Same hook size, just varied the weights and the heads themselves. So now we just take a few minutes to show you how I actually rig one of these lures. Okay, I've got to put my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. Right, what we're going to aim for with the jerk shad is for the bait to have the nose of the bait impaled, if you like, on the hook shank, and then we want the hook shank to come free in the belly, which where that open slot is in the lure, and then we're going to have the tail, the bend of the hook coming up through the tail of the lure about there. That's what we're aiming for. So to do that, we're going to go through the nose, and out the belly like so. Okay, then we just push that up is pretty rubbery, so it takes a bit of effort to push it up on there, and you'll notice it's almost turning the end of the lure inside out as I do it. So once I get to that point, I'm just going to tug it back a little bit, now that I've made the hole for it, and rotate it round. Okay, so looking at it like that, I've got that part of the lure in the right place. Now I need to put the hook up through the tail. If I stretch it too much, it'll make the lure have a kink in its tail. If I don't stretch it enough, then I'll run out of lure, and I want that last part of the lure to be nice and floppy so it looks like a fish swimming. So I'm going to come up through about like so, and that's not quite right because it's got a little kink, so I'm going to pull it back out. The beautiful thing about a TPR lure like this is you can put the hook through it many times without affecting the way the lure performs. Okay, so the end of it just sometimes turns inside out a little bit, so you need to back it off and have a look, make sure it's got a nice square end and it's not tucked inside. There we go, that looks better. And then up through the belly, like so. That's about perfect. A nice straight lure, a little bit of gravity pulling the tail down there, but that's going to run through the water very nicely. It means that I can actually push it even up like so, so that the tip of the hook is not very exposed, but when the fish bites down, he's going to get hooked up, no problem at all. But that's how I want to rig this jerk shad, so that it runs through the water really nicely. Now let's look at how we rig up one of these little micro squids instead. And these ones have actually got a hole running through the middle of the lure, which is just the right diameter for you to be able to feed it onto your jig head. So there we go. Really easy to put the run the hook down through that hole and then push it up and on. This time you don't have to rotate it, obviously, but I do like to try and just make sure that those little wings on the jig head, on the lure, are aligned with the sides of the jig head. Just helps the lure to run more true through the water. So there we go. There's a little squid, micro squid, all rigged up, ready to go. As you can see, that's TPR as well. It's got the squid scent in it, and it actually glows in the dark too, so you can charge it up with your UV torch. And they seem to work really well around structure, casting up into the weed, which is where a lot of your baby squid are. But they do also work pretty well as a whitebait imitation when you're using that one, I've noticed. There's times when kahawai are chasing whitebait on the surface, you can see them and they can be so frustrating because they won't touch anything else. But those little white ones have been working really well in that sort of situation. The key thing that makes a huge difference from what I've seen when you're fishing with one of these really light little jig heads and a really small profile lure like this is to use a really fine braid. And so this is the Purline Surf Pro braid that we sell, and it's 10 pounds, but it's only 0.08 of a millimetre in diameter. So it's 10 pounds, 0.08, so it's less than 1/10 of a millimetre. It's the finest braid that I've actually seen. Somebody might be able to straighten me out and tell me about a finer one, but it's the finest braid that I've seen for weight available on the market, and that makes a huge difference. That, I think, is the key reason why I was able to fish this lure in 55 metres of water successfully today, because I've got such a fine braid that there's very little drag on that line in the water column. It's enabling that lure to sink down fast and to sink down naturally. Obviously, if you are casting this thing up into the wash, you don't need to do any of that. Or if you're fishing maybe in 10 or 15 metres of water, the process is a little bit different. But you'll find that these lures can be deadly anywhere between 2-3 metres out to what I proved today, 55 metres of water.